Japan and China have always had beef, but a temporary alliance is formed because the Chinese are searching for a boy who managed to escape into this country. The little boy in question fled the Ming dynasty with the help of a monk named Shouan, and is currently in the middle of an elaborate scheme to steal fish from this old man with the help of his dog, Tobimaru. With their little heist successful, Kotaro and Tobimaru return to their hideout, but as they enter, Tobimaru spots an unfamiliar face, so he starts growling to alert Kotaro. Kotaro asks the man who he is and yells for him to get out, but the guy tells Kotaro that he has no right to kick him out since he doesn't own this abandoned temple. Kotaro realizes he can't force the guy to leave. He doesn't want to be anywhere near him, so he calls Tobimaru and goes outside to cook the fish he stole. While he's cooking, the man comes out because he smelt the fish, but Kotaro refuses to share any of it with a random hobo like him. He then gives Tobimaru a fish, but to his surprise, Tobimaru goes and gives the fish to the stranger since he can tell that the man's a good person. Meanwhile, over by the old man's house, a group of Japanese soldiers have just shown up, and they are asking the old man if he has seen a young boy anywhere around here. The old man recalls a young boy matching their description who came and stole his stuff, although he has no idea where the boy went afterwards. Just then, the soldiers notice some smoke over in the distance, so they realize Kotaro must be hiding out over there and immediately head for the abandoned temple. Back at the temple, Tobimaru senses someone approaching and Kotaro knows this is bad news, so he immediately yells for Tobimaru to follow him so they can escape. However, before he can make it out the door, his path gets blocked and he gets smacked through the wall by a rock. One of the soldiers approaches the man and tells him to step aside because they are here on official business from Lord Akaike. But Ronin doesn't let him pass because no matter who they serve, it doesn't give them the right to beat up a little kid. The soldier is offended that a mere bum would dare to disobey him, so he draws his sword and tries to cut him down. But Ronin dodges and smacks the soldier in the head with a pot. The other soldier sees this and decides to attack the dog first for some reason, but it doesn't work out well for him since he gets his throat ripped out by Tobimaru. The two Japanese soldiers are done for, but there's still one Chinese soldier here, and he's much more skilled than the others. He immediately throws two daggers at Ronin, but before he could be hit, Tobimaru jumps in front of him and blocks it. Since his surprise attack failed, Chinese warrior then pulls out a whip and begins flailing it around in an attempt to hit Ronin. But in the process, Ronin manages to turn the tables and uses the Chinese man's whip to pull him in before crushing his neck against a wall, all without unsheathing his sword. Ronin is glad he made it out of that alive, but this place is way too dangerous, so he can't stay here any longer and starts packing his bags to leave. Meanwhile, Kotaro goes to check on Tobimaru, but he's not looking too good. Ronin takes one look at him and can immediately tell that Tobimaru must have been scratched by the poison daggers, so there's nothing they can do to help him here since only a medicine man can cure the poison. He tells Kotaro that he can find one in the town nearby, but Kotaro says he can't go into that town again since the people there would rat him out to the soldiers. In that case, Ronin suggests that Kotaro should head for the next town to find a doctor who won't know who he is, but there's just one problem with that. Kotaro can't ride a horse and he wouldn't be able to protect himself during that journey. He asked Ronin to take him there, but Ronin is smart enough to know that he doesn't want to get involved with whatever Kotaro has going on, so he declines. Kotaro tries to guilt him into helping by pointing out that Tobimaru only got injured because he was protecting Ronin, but Ronin reminds Kotaro that he was the one who killed the soldiers, so if anything, he saved them. He then tries to leave, but Kotaro is desperate, so he runs out in front of Ronin and offers to give him his jewel in exchange for getting treatment for Tobimaru and then escorting him to safety. Ronin can tell that the jewel is genuine and it's apparently worth 10 gold coins, so he agrees to escort Kotaro and takes one of the dead soldiers' horses so they can head to the next town. There they find a medicine man to treat Tobimaru, and after a little treatment, he says Tobimaru will be able to survive. He may be a bit weak, but should recover after he gets the chance to rest. At the same time, more soldiers have arrived at the abandoned temple to investigate what happened, and the Chinese soldier discovers that his comrade has been slain, so he is deeply saddened. However, it only gets worse for him because the Japanese decide to break their alliance and attack him all at once so they can take him hostage. In the town, Ronin decides to rent out the shed of an old man, so the three of them will have somewhere to stay until Tobimaru wakes up, and the next morning, Ronin wakes up and asks how Tobimaru is doing, but Kotaro doesn't answer him, so he decides to head out for a bit. Suddenly, Kotaro yells and asks Ronin where he's going, so Ronin explains that he's just going to buy a saddle for their horse. He heads into town and buys the saddle, but by chance, Luo-Lang happened to be passing through town. His companion says he's a little worried about Jinhai and Tusi, since they haven't heard from them ever since they went out to capture that boy at the abandoned temple, but Luo-Lang is confident that they should be able to handle themselves if any trouble were to arise. Still, he never could have imagined that it would be this difficult to catch a single boy in this country, and if they don't find him within the next 4 days, they are going to be stuck in Japan for another year. Just then, the group comes across Ronin, who is walking with his head down. And normally, they would have just ignored him, but Luo-Lang noticed that Ronin's sword was tied shut, so he became intrigued and decided to start a fight with him for no reason and throws a dagger at him. Ronin stops walking, so Luo-Lang charges at him in an attempt to get him to draw his sword, but Ronin simply blocks and chooses to stay on the defensive instead of attacking. Luo-Lang thinks it's interesting that this man still refuses to draw his sword even though his life is in danger, and he's about to attack some more to see how long Ronin is willing to keep his sword sheath. But before he can continue the fight, a report comes in saying that 2 of their men have been found dead, so Luo-Lang is forced to leave to investigate for the time being. Ronin is relieved that he got out of that fight unharmed, so he returns to Kotaro. But Kotaro seems upset for some reason. Ronin took a long time to return, so Kotaro is convinced that he must have been trying to sell him out, and nothing Ronin says can convince him otherwise. All of a sudden, Tobimaru wakes up, so Ronin says he's going outside to make some food for them, and Kotaro is starting to realize that he may have been irrational. So when Ronin comes back, he apologizes for his earlier behavior. Meanwhile, the Lord and his right-hand man, Itadori, head into the palace dungeon where they held the Chinese man captive, and they've been torturing him for a while to get information, but he seems like he's completely numb to pain, so this may take a while. In the meantime, since Tobimaru is feeling better, Ronin decides that they should keep moving, so they get back on the road and continue their travel. After traveling for a while, they stop at a hot spring to take a bath, and while Ronin is bathing, Kotaro asks a couple of questions because he wants to get to know him better. However, Ronin says there's not much to talk about. He once served a lord, but they since lost their land and power, so he's a wandering samurai now. People used to call him all sorts of names like red-haired demon back when he would fight in wars, but Kotaro thinks that's a little strange since Ronin looks nothing like a red demon. However, he then notices that the black color is washing out of Ronin's hair, revealing a full head of red hair. Kotaro is a little shocked after seeing this, so he asks Ronin if he's a foreigner. Ronin says he's not sure about his origins because he has been an orphan all his life, but after he learned how to color his hair black, his life got a lot easier since people stopped staring so much. Back at the palace, it finally managed to break the Chinese man's resolve, because they discovered that he had been taking a drug that numbs his body to pain, and without it, he became an absolute mess and told them everything about the Chinese emperor's plan. According to 2C, there is a legend stating that once every 100 years, a boy is chosen to be sacrificed, and if his blood is drawn at a very specific time on a special altar, it can be used to create the Xian medicine, which supposedly grants immortality. Whether the legend is to be believed or not is an entirely different matter, but for now, since they know what the Chinese are up to, they can plan accordingly and finally rid themselves of the Chinese. Ronin and Kotaro arrive at the Mangaku Temple, so their contract has been fulfilled and Kotaro hands the jewel over to Ronin, but there's something Kotaro says he needs to tell him. He was kind of bluffing when he said the jewel was worth 10 gold coins, because it's really only worth about 1 gold. Ronin is shocked that he was being scammed this whole time, but he doesn't really mind since he had fun traveling with him. Just then, Shouan comes out of the temple and Kotaro is elated to see that he's alright, so he runs up to hug him, and since Kotaro seems to be in good hands, Ronin decides to leave. Shouan leads Kotaro to a room where he meets Master Zekkai. However, Zekkai only brought Kotaro here because he is selling him out to the Chinese. Kotaro realizes he has been betrayed, so he tries to flee, but he gets grabbed by one of the Chinese soldiers before he could get away. He tries to break free by biting the soldier's finger, but the soldier barely flinches and backhands Kotaro away, losing the finger in the process. Kotaro falls unconscious after being hit, so the Chinese soldiers grab him and are about to leave, but all of a sudden, they are attacked by a bunch of Japanese soldiers sent by Lord Akaike. So one of the Chinese men stops to fight them, and frankly the Japanese soldiers don't stand a chance, so they send a messenger to ask Itadori for help. The messenger happens to run past Ronin, and once he notices the blood stains, he realizes something bad must have happened, so he rushes back into the temple. Once the Chinese men have defeated the Japanese men, they start making their escape, but Ronin soon shows up and begins chasing them because he refuses to let Kotaro be kidnapped. However, despite his best efforts, one of the Chinese men throws a poison dagger at his horse, so Ronin falls off and can't keep up with them anymore. He wants to save Kotaro, but he has no idea where the Chinese are taking him, so he goes back into the temple to confront the people who sold Kotaro out. Zekkai sees Ronin approaching and tries to attack him, but Ronin quickly knocks him out and then turns to Shouan. He demands to know where the Chinese are taking Kotaro and what they plan to do with him. So Shouan reveals that Kotaro is being taken to the newly built altar, and by midnight, he is going to be killed so his blood can be harvested. Ronin can't believe Shouan would hand Kotaro over to the Chinese even though he knew that they were going to kill him. So he slashes Shouan's clothes and says a treacherous coward like him doesn't deserve to call himself a monk. He then leaves to go save Kotaro before it's too late, but at the same time, the Chinese are putting their plan into action and preparing the altar for the ritual. A little while after Ronin left, Itadori and his men arrived at the temple, and Itadori was beside himself in rage at the fact that Zekkai made a deal with the Chinese. To make matters worse, he soon receives word that the Chinese stormed the palace and kidnapped their lord, so they are now holding him hostage at the stronghold. An all-out battle is inevitable at this point, and Itadori is the only commander left right now, so the lord's daughter has declared that it is his responsibility to lead them into battle. Over at the stronghold, Kotaro has already been tied to the altar, and as soon as the clock hits midnight, he will be killed for the sake of their ritual, so he doesn't have much time left. Back at the lord's palace, the princess and her mother are both worried for the safety of their lord, but they are sure that Itadori will do whatever it takes to rescue Lord Akaike. Meanwhile, Itadori and his soldiers arrive at the stronghold and find that the Chinese are using Lord Akaike as a human shield to delay them until the ritual is over. If they were to attack now, they would risk accidentally killing the lord, so to solve this, Itadori intentionally kills him instead. The Chinese can't use the lord as a human shield if he's already dead, and right now stopping them from completing the immortality ritual is far more important than the lord's life. The Chinese commander can't believe that Itadori would sacrifice his lord without a second thought like that, but Luo-Lang honestly respects the decision. Since the Japanese soldiers are going to attack immediately, the Chinese soldiers are going to have to hold them off until midnight so they can complete the ritual. The Japanese soldiers fire flaming arrows into the stronghold and begins ramming the gate to bust it down. And once the gate is down, they all charge in, except Jirato and Itadori. Jirato says there's something he wants as a reward for this battle. But before he's even done talking, Itadori already knows what he wants, so he tells Jirato that if they win, he can marry the princess. Jirato then rushes in and takes out the snipers with his bow, but a second later, an axe wielder catches up to him and blows his head off, so it looks like he won't get to marry the princess after all. Eventually, Ronin arrives on the battlefield, and as soon as he spots Kotaro at the top of the altar, he begins running towards him, but before he could make it, a nearby tower comes down and falls on him. Ronin is knocked out for a second, and while he's unconscious, he has flashbacks to his time as the Red Hair Demon. He was ferocious on the battlefield and almost single-handedly claimed victory for his former lord, but after the battle, as much as he didn't want to do it, he was forced to behead the children of the losing side. From that day, Ronin decided he would never unsheath his sword again because he couldn't bring himself to wield it after what he had done, but now he has something he truly wishes to protect, and he will do whatever it takes to make sure Kotaro is safe. As he is running towards the altar, one of the Chinese soldiers try to stop him, so Ronin unsheaths his sword and slices the guy in half without stopping for even a moment. And then, just as Kotaro is about to be executed, Ronin throws his sword right into the neck of the soldier. Down on the floor, Luo-Lang tells the commander that the specified time for the ritual has passed, meaning they can't kill Kotaro anymore, so the general tells the remaining soldiers to go up and capture him so they can attempt the ritual again next year. As Ronin and Kotaro are trying to escape, the soldiers corner them and knock Ronin off the staircase. Right now, all he has is his sheath, so he is really struggling to fight back against the soldiers. But luckily, Kotaro throws his sword down to him, so he manages to stab the first one through the head, but in the process he gets blinded by the blood squirting in his eyes. The second one notices this and uses the opportunity to push him off the ledge, so they both fall several meters down. However, when they finally land, Ronin is mostly alright, while the soldier has a sword stuck in his neck. Since he still can't see, Ronin trips and falls off the side of another ledge, so Kotaro rushes to catch and pull him up. However, this leaves him wide open, so the general pulls out a gun and is about to shoot him. But before he could do so, Luo-Lang chops his arm off because he thinks it would be a shame to defeat Ronin in such a fashion. Besides, he never really liked serving the Chinese emperor anyway. He has never met a warrior who could match him, but Ronin looks like he would give him a good fight, so Luo-Lang confronts Ronin and patiently waits for him to get back to his feet because he wants to have a fair duel. Ronin takes his sword and agrees to fight Luo-Lang. So the two charge at each other and begin parrying each other's attacks, so by the end of it, both sides are only left with minor injuries. Luo-Lang starting to enjoy this, so he charges in again, and this time he manages to land a cut on Ronin's shoulder. So Ronin is forced to go on the defensive and tries to create some distance by running away. However, Luo-Lang gives him no breathing room and continues to push Ronin back, so Ronin falls off the side of another ledge and lands with a sword lodged in his forearm. Luo-Lang is still coming after him, so at the last second, Ronin pulls the sword out of his arm and uses it to counterattack Luo-Lang. The two of them simultaneously land their attacks, but while Ronin's sword pierced Luo-Lang's chest, Luo-Lang's sword had been deflected by the jewel Kotaro gave him. Thanks to that, Ronin emerges the victor of that battle, and since there's no one left to chase them, Kotaro takes Tobimaru and the injured Ronin and rides off. As they ride away, Kotaro suggests that once Ronin has healed, they could leave the country and go on an adventure. They may have to become mercenaries or bandits to make money, but as long as the three of them are together, he's sure they'll be fine.